My daughter called me a fat old pig at her own wedding. Those were the first words that cut through the music, sharper than the clinking glasses and forced laughter circling the vineyard terrace. I stood near the back of the reception hall, smoothing the navy dress I had sewn myself. The stitches a little uneven because my hands were not as steady at 70 as they once were. I had arrived alone, as I always did, and told myself that was enough. Tonight was about Sophia, not me. She raised her champagne glass, her cheeks flushed, her smile bright. "And my mother," she said, glancing straight at me. "My fat old pig always wanted to be here." The laughter exploded before the words even finished leaving her mouth. A bridesmaid nearly spilled her drink, trying to hide her giggles. Someone from Daniel's side slapped the table. A man I had never met barked out a laugh so loud the microphone screeched. I didn't move. My throat tightened until I could barely swallow. I tried to tell myself I had survived worse humiliations, but this one came from the child I raised through every storm. Then the room shifted. Miguel Serrano, Daniel's father, stopped laughing mid-breath. His glass hovered in the air, frozen. His wife, Lucia, stared at me with her hand pressed to her chest as if someone had struck her. "Miguel," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Miguel, is that her? You are sure it is her?" Her husband nodded once. So slightly, it barely counted as movement. Color drained from both their faces. I tried to step away from the spotlight of their eyes. But a young server carrying a tray passed in front of me. When he saw me clearly, he bowed his head not politely, but reverently, as if I were someone vastly more important than the woman Sophia had mocked. Humiliation rose in my chest, but something colder slid beneath it, dread, old and familiar. The laughter began to die down. Conversations shifted, whispers building like insects in the walls. People looked at Sophia, then at me, then at her new in-laws. I stood there, breathing slowly, wondering how the night had really begun. I stepped outside before anyone could stop me. The night air hit my face like cool water, sharp enough to steady my breath. I stood near the railing, hands clasped tight, trying to quiet the sting Sophia's words had left inside me. Footsteps followed soft at first, then hurried. "Doña Eldora," Miguel Serrano said, his voice tight. "Please, wait." I turned slowly. Miguel and his wife, Lucia, stood a few steps away. Neither looked like the composed hosts they had been only minutes earlier. Miguel's jaw trembled. Lucia clutched her shawl, eyes lowered to the ground as if she feared meeting mine. "I need a moment alone," I said. "We know," Miguel answered. "Even so, we need to speak privately. Please do not leave the venue yet." Lucia lifted her gaze halfway, stopped, then looked at the stone floor again. For a moment her lips parted, as if she meant to apologize. Instead, she pressed them together and stepped behind her husband. "I do not understand," I whispered. Miguel took another step toward me, lowering his voice. "It is important." Before I could respond, a pair of guests passed behind us. One leaned toward the other and muttered, "Is that really her?" From the Serrano case, my stomach tightened. The whisper traveled through the air like smoke. I opened my mouth to speak, but a sharp voice sliced through the corridor. Mama Sophia strode toward us, heels clacking against the tile. Her face was flushed, anger rising with every step. "What are you doing?" she demanded. "Why are you pulling them aside? You are making a scene." "I came outside to breathe," I said softly. "Then breathe somewhere else." She snapped. "They keep staring at me like I brought a stranger into their family. I do not know what you said to them, but you are ruining my night." Miguel cleared his throat. "Sophia, your mother did nothing." "Please," Sophia cut in. "This is between her and me." I reached for her arm, just lightly. "I do not want trouble." "Then stop attracting it," she hissed. She pulled away and stormed back toward the reception hall, leaving the three of us standing in her wake. Miguel exhaled shakily. Lucia finally looked at me, fear tightening every feature. "We really must speak," she murmured. "There are things you deserve to know." Miguel and Lucia waited for me to speak, but my voice would not come. Their fear stirred something I had buried so deeply that even I sometimes forgot it was there. I stepped back from them and closed my eyes, and the past rose up like a hand gripping my throat. I was 40 when Sophia started first grade. I worked double shifts at the old textile plant outside Charlottesville, stitching uniforms until my fingers cramped. At night, I took in extra mending from neighbors just to keep the lights on. Sophia used to sit beside me at the kitchen table, coloring while I sewed. She would say, "Mama, you are always tired." And I would smile as if exhaustion were a harmless thing. But before those years, before the plant, I had lived a different life. I had worked for an investment firm in Richmond. Nothing grand administration, compliance, endless paperwork, but enough to see what others pretended not to. Numbers that did not match, balances that shifted without explanation. And the Serrano Energy subsidiary that carried those figures like a wound no one wanted to treat. One night, a junior analyst, terrified, whispered to me that people would lose everything if the truth stayed hidden. Hundreds of workers, families who had done nothing wrong. I remember gripping the edge of my desk until my knuckles ached. I did what no one else dared. I gathered proof, copies, statements, and walked it straight to an attorney who promised to protect my identity. When the scandal broke months later, all they called me was the Blue Ridge whistleblower. The court sealed my name. The company collapsed. The Serrano parent firm survived only because federal investigators had enough evidence to intervene early. When the backlash began, threats, anger, accusations, I disappeared into the life Sophia now believes was always mine. A simple worker, a worn-down mother, someone unremarkable. Miguel knew. Lucia whispered beside me now. He knew someone had saved them. He never imagined it was you. I kept my eyes on my hands. I hid it so Sophia would stay safe. I did not want her growing up in the middle of that storm. Miguel's voice softened. "But she never knew who you really were." "No," I said quietly. "She only saw the parts I left in the light." I returned to the reception hall because Miguel insisted we would speak later. I wanted to leave, but Sophia found me first, striding toward me with her veil pushed back and her eyes sharp. "There you are," she said. "I have been looking for you. Daniel and I need to clear something up." Daniel hovered behind her, avoiding my eyes. "What needs clearing?" I asked. Sophia folded her arms. "We were finalizing some paperwork before the wedding. Standard things, background checks, family history, financial disclosures, nothing dramatic." Daniel shifted. "Sophia." She cut him off. "I told Daniel that my mother has never had anything to hide, so we requested basic records. It should have been simple, but everything about you came back restricted. Who restricts information for someone with no assets?" My breath caught. "You tried to access my financial records. It was harmless." She said, "Just a third-party firm. They said your files required higher clearance." That made no sense. Daniel finally stepped forward. "Sophia, stop. She deserves to hear the rest." Sophia snapped. "Then say it." Daniel swallowed hard. "When I was in graduate school, we studied the Serrano scandal. There was a sealed informant involved. Your name was blurred out by their family lawyers, but the initials matched. The timeline matched. I recognized your face today from a redacted photo in the archive." Sophia stared at him as if he had betrayed her. "You knew this and never told me," she demanded. "It was sealed," he said softly. "I thought it was protected for a reason." Sophia turned back to me. "So this is why they kept looking at you like that." This is what you hid from me my whole life. I steadied myself. I hid it to protect you. She shook her head. Furious. You made me look like a fool in front of my own in-laws. Across the room, Miguel watched us with that same pale, shaken expression. In his eyes, I finally understood why he had followed me outside. The past was not finished with any of us. Miguel called early the next morning. His voice held none of the polite warmth from the wedding. Doña Eldora, I booked a private room at the Jefferson on Main Street. Please come. It cannot wait. I agreed because there was no point in running from what had already found me. When I arrived, Miguel sat alone in a corner of the lounge. Shoulders tight, hands clasped as if holding something fragile. Lucia sat beside him, eyes red, avoiding mine. Thank you for coming, Miguel said quietly. I doubt I had a choice. I replied. He nodded. Our family company nearly collapsed 30 years ago. Fraud, pressure from the federal inspectors, internal corruption. It was a nightmare. Someone delivered evidence that saved us from criminal charges. We never knew who, until last night, Lucia whispered. You kept us alive. You saved hundreds of workers. You changed everything. Miguel leaned forward. You could have used that leverage against us. You never did. I never wanted power. I said, I wanted people safe. He hesitated, then slid a folder across the table. Your daughter submitted your personal information to a law office in Richmond 3 weeks ago. They specialize in elder estate restructuring. The request was to evaluate if you could be deemed financially incompetent. My chest tightened. She did this. Yes, he said. We received notice because your records are cross-linked to sealed documents from the old case. Lucia finally met my eyes. Please, do not reveal who you are. If this becomes public, the media will reopen everything. Our family cannot survive that again. I closed the folder slowly. My daughter wanted control over a life she never bothered to understand. Miguel exhaled. She does not know the weight she is playing with. I sat back, the betrayal settling inside me like something cold and heavy, and listened as their past and mine began to tangle beyond anyone's control. Harriet Ellison opened her apartment door before I even knocked twice. She wore her usual gray sweater, her red hair twisted into a messy knot, glasses perched on the edge of her nose. She had been my accountant and my closest friend for more than 20 years, and she did not waste time pretending everything was normal. I saw the photos online, she said quietly. Come in. I stepped inside. She closed the door and locked it. Something she did only when she sensed danger. A stack of folders already waited on the kitchen table. I pulled everything last night, Harriet said. Every archive, every letter from the Serrano case, every asset file with your name on it. Sit. I sat because my legs were unsteady. Harriet opened the first folder. Old correspondence stamped with federal seals, the kind I had spent decades trying to forget. These are clean, she said. They still protect you. No one can undo the legal anonymity. She opened another folder. This one is not clean. Inside were printouts of Sophia's access attempts, requests submitted to financial firms, queries on my medical history, a flagged note from an insurance provider. My heart knocked painfully against my ribs. She went this far. Harriet did not look up. There is more. You need to breathe before I show it. I am breathing, I said, though my voice failed to support the words. She slid a single page across the table. She signed an intention form. A petition for temporary control of your estate if you ever showed cognitive decline. The room went quiet. Not the soft kind of quiet, this one carried weight. She thinks I am losing my mind. I whispered, or she hopes I will. Harriet's voice softened. She thinks you are vulnerable, and she is preparing to take advantage of that. I pressed my hand against my chest, steadying myself. All I ever did was protect her. I know, Harriet said. But protection ends where manipulation begins. She pulled out another folder, this one thin but neatly labeled. Here, these documents tell the story on your terms, your truth, your timeline. If you choose to confront her, this is what you take. I rested my palm on the folder, feeling the edges beneath my fingers, and let the decision settle into me like a slow, steady burn. I chose a small lounge near the downtown mall, a place quiet enough that no one would dare raise their voice. By the time I arrived, everyone was already seated, Sophia rigid in her chair, Daniel tense beside her, Miguel and Lucia whispering to one another, and Harriet steady with a folder resting beneath her hand. I sat last. The table felt too small for what needed to be said. Sophia spoke first. "Why are we here? What drama are you starting now?" Daniel murmured. "Sophia, please." Harriet opened the folder without ceremony. "We will begin with facts." Sophia scoffed. "Who even are you?" "I am the person who has kept your mother's life in order for more than 20 years, Harriet replied. "And the person who uncovered what you attempted to do." She slid several documents toward the center of the table. Miguel leaned forward, already pale. "These are old," he whispered. "Federal seals." "I remember these markings." Harriet nodded. "Your company survived because of this evidence. Because Eldora provided it." Sophia blinked as if the words were nonsense. "She worked at a textile plant. After the backlash," Harriet said. "Before that, she was the anonymous informant you studied in graduate school, Daniel, the one the media called the Blue Ridge whistleblower." Daniel's breath left him all at once. "It was her," he said. I knew the initials were familiar. Sophia turned to me sharply. "You lied to me, my whole life." "I protected you," I answered. Harriet laid out the next set of documents, Sophia's access attempts, the financial requests, the flagged inquiries. Daniel's face tightened. "Sophia, you told me she had no assets." Sophia's voice cracked. "I only wanted to understand why everything was hidden. I was trying to prepare us." Harriet placed the last page on the table. "This is the intention form you signed. A petition to assume temporary control of her estate if she ever showed cognitive decline." Sophia stared at it, horror spreading across her face. "I did not know it would look like this. I never meant." Daniel interrupted, his voice shaking. "You tried to take her life out from under her." Miguel bowed his head. "Doña Eldora, our family owes you more than we can ever repay." I lifted my hand gently. "My estate is secured. My decisions are my own. No one may access anything I have built without my explicit consent." Sophia's tears fell hard and fast as she reached for me. "Mama, please." I held my ground, steady but breaking inside where she could not see. The truth lay between us now, sharp as glass, changing the shape of everything that came next. Daniel moved out the morning after our meeting. I heard it from Harriet, who had passed him on the sidewalk outside my building. He looked exhausted, she said, as if the truth had stripped something from him he could not put back. Sophia called later that afternoon. Her voice shook the moment I answered. "Mama, Daniel left," she said. "He said he needs space. He said he needs to understand who I am." I waited. She rarely paused long enough to let emotions settle. "It is your fault," she said suddenly. "You turned everything upside down. You did that when you tried to take control of my life." I replied quietly. There was a long stretch of silence, then a breath that sounded almost like surrender. "I did not know what I was doing," Sophia whispered. I wanted to belong somewhere. When I was little, the girls at school used to ask why my mother worked late, why you wore the same coat for years. They said I would never fit in with the families on the hill. I promised myself I would climb out of that." Her voice cracked. "I thought you were too small for the world I wanted." I closed my eyes. The words cut deep, Not because they were cruel, but because they were honest. "I never meant to be small," I said. "I only tried to make your life feel bigger." She sniffed hard. "I did not want your money. I wanted distance from the shame. The shame was never mine." I answered, "But you carried it as if it belonged to you." Another silence. Softer this time. "Mama, I do not know how to fix what I did." "I do not either," I said. "But if you want to talk, truly talk, I am here. Not my estate, not my history, just me." She exhaled shakily, as if letting go of something she had gripped for far too long. The line stayed open, both of us waiting for what might come next. Weeks passed before I allowed myself to walk through downtown Charlottesville without rushing or keeping my head low. I moved slowly along the brick walkway, past the storefronts and cafes I had avoided for years. A weight I had carried for decades felt lighter, not because everything was healed, but because nothing was hidden anymore. At the community center, a group of young women waited around a folding table. The director, Mrs. Albright, waved me over. "Ladies, this is Eldora Whitlow," she said. "She will be mentoring you in financial ethics and compliance." One of the girls smiled nervously. "Are you really the Blue Ridge whistleblower?" I sat beside her. "I am the woman who did what needed to be done," I said, "and you will learn to do the same." Their questions came quickly: how to stay honest in a dishonest world, how to recognize fraud, how to protect workers when leadership fails them. Their hunger to understand warmed something long ignored inside me. I answered every question without fear. After the session ended, I checked my phone. A new message from Sophia blinked on the screen. "Mama, I started therapy today. I am trying. I hope that counts for something." I stared at the words for a long moment. They were small, uncertain, but they were hers. I typed slowly. "Thank you for telling me. I am glad you are doing the work. We can talk when you are ready." A few seconds later, she responded with a single heart. It was the first gentle thing between us in months. I stepped back outside, feeling the late afternoon sun brush my face. For so many years, I had shrunk myself to keep Sophia safe, believing invisibility was protection, but all it ever did was turn me into a shadow in her eyes. Now I no longer carry the old shame she once mistook for truth. The world sees me clearly. My daughter sees me clearly, and I will not step back into the dark ever again. If you want to hear the next part of my journey, stay with me. There is still more to tell. When the world finally sees you for who you are, do you step forward or do you turn away again?